First Contact's gaming section. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the gleaming control room of the UES Odyssey, Earth's first deep space military vessel, trying not to laugh at the expression on first speaker Tellarian's face. The towering alien's iridescent scales had shifted from their usual calm blue to a bewildered purple as they watched Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez absolutely demolish their most advanced combat simulation. "Impossible," Tellarian whispered, all four eyes fixed on the holoscreen. "That simulation is calibrated for our most elite warriors. It takes years to master the quantum shift targeting system alone." Rodriguez's avatar danced through the virtual battlefield, wielding the alien weapon system with impossible precision. His fingers flew across the neural interface, designed for beings with twice as many digits, somehow making it look effortless. "Hey, Captain," Rodriguez called out, not taking his eyes off the simulation. "This reminds me of that indie game that came out last year. What was it called? The one with the non-Euclidean geometry puzzles." "Portal 4, Chen replied, maintaining her diplomatic composure despite wanting to grin. "Though I think this has more in common with Beat Saber Ultra." The gathered Arxian military observers chittered amongst themselves in their native tongue, their translator units struggling to keep up with their agitated discussion. Chen caught phrases like statistical impossibility and neural architecture incompatibility. First speaker Tellarian raised a hand, silencing the observers. "Captain Chen, with all due respect, this is not some primitive entertainment system. Our combat integration pods are sophisticated military hardware designed to—" "Oh sweet, I found the combo system," Rodriguez interrupted, his avatar executing a series of moves that, according to the scrolling data on the side of the screen, had never been performed in that sequence before. "It's just like Stellar Combat VI, if you buffer the targeting lock while charging the secondary fire." The simulation erupted in a perfectly choreographed sequence of destruction that sent the difficulty assessment algorithms into a cascading failure. As emergency cooling systems activated to prevent the quantum processors from overheating, Chen finally allowed herself a small smile. "First speaker," she said carefully, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. We don't see your combat integration pods as entertainment systems. Rather, we've spent the last century developing entertainment systems that function as combat training." Tellarian's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. "Explain." Chen gestured to Rodriguez, who was still casually breaking records while chatting with a junior Arxian technician about optimal energy management strategies. "Humans have always learned best through play. While your species focused on developing increasingly sophisticated military simulation technology, we were creating games that taught the same skills to children. Pattern recognition, spatial awareness, resource management, split-second decision-making." "Are you suggesting," one of the military observers cut in, "that your species has been unconsciously preparing for advanced warfare through entertainment?" "Not unconsciously," Chen corrected. "We just found that making it fun was the most efficient way to learn. By the time we developed neural interfaces, most humans had spent years training their brains to adapt to new control systems and dimensional perspectives through gaming." A new alarm blared as Rodriguez discovered an entirely new way to manipulate the quantum targeting system. The Arxian technicians rushed to their stations, frantically trying to document what their systems were classifying as impossible user inputs. First speaker, Chen continued, "I understand this may be difficult to accept, but this is why we believe our species can be valuable allies. You see elegant weapon systems that take years to master. We see new ways to play." Tellarian was silent for a long moment, scales cycling through several colors Chen's xenobiology training hadn't covered yet. Finally, they spoke. "Captain, when your diplomatic court suggested joining our military alliance, many thought it was a joke. Your species has barely achieved faster than light travel. Your weapons technology is centuries behind ours. And yet," the holoscreen displayed Rodriguez's final score, a number so high the system had switched to scientific notation to display it. The lieutenant finally stepped out of the simulation pod, stretching casually. That was fun. Kind of reminds me of the old VR setups we had back home, but with better haptic feedback. Hey, who do I talk to about adjusting the control sensitivity? I think if you reduced the quantum field latency by about 12 milliseconds, you could make the weapon swaps feel way more responsive. The room erupted in chaos as every Arxian technician simultaneously tried to get Rodriguez's attention. In the midst of it all, Tellurian turned to Chen with an expression she was starting to recognize as their species' version of resigned amusement. Captain Chen, I believe we need to seriously reconsider your species' role in our alliance, and perhaps review our understanding of what constitutes effective combat training. Chen nodded diplomatically, even as she watched Rodriguez drawing diagrams for the enthusiastic technicians, explaining concepts from human game design that were apparently revolutionary in military simulation technology. We'd be happy to share our expertise, she said, though I should warn you, once our game developers hear about your quantum interface technology, they're going to have some very exciting ideas about how to use it. Hilarian's scales flickered briefly to alarm red before settling into a calm blue again. Why do I suddenly feel like this alliance may be more revolutionary than we anticipated? Don't worry, Chen assured them, watching as Rodriguez began explaining the concept of achievement hunting to the increasingly fascinated Arxian military observers. This is just the tutorial level. The tournament. The grand arena of Arxos wasn't built for humans. Everything about its towering crystalline architecture spoke of beings who thought in higher dimensions and moved with perfect geometric precision, which made it all the more satisfying when Lieutenant Rodriguez casually spun the most advanced weapon in the known galaxy like a drumstick. If he drops that quantum lance, there will be diplomatic incidents, Captain Chen muttered, watching from the observation deck as her weapons officer continued to antagonize the gathered representatives of 12 spacefaring civilizations. Fascinating, Supreme Commander Vexterra of the Arxian High Command said, their scales rippling with analytical patterns. In the 3 cycles since our first contact, we've had to completely rewrite our understanding of neural adaptability. Your species shouldn't be capable of this level of weapons integration. Below, Rodriguez was explaining something to a group of bewildered alien warriors, his hands moving animatedly. Even from this distance, Chen could lip-read enough to know he was comparing the quantum lance's handling to something called Ninja Gaiden Black. The tournament of martial excellence has existed for 12,000 cycles, Vexterra continued. It is meant to showcase the pinnacle of weapons mastery across known space. Yet your lieutenant treats our most sophisticated armaments like, what was the term he used? Cheat codes, Chen supplied, suppressing a smile. He said the quantum targeting system is basically just aim assist with extra steps. The tournament arena below them hummed with energy as the first round prepared to begin. 50 of the most elite warriors in known space, each armed with weapons that could level small cities, and one human who kept trying to figure out if the quantum lance could do a 360 no-scope. Begin. The announcement resonated through the arena in 12 different languages. What followed could only be described as a revolution in military doctrine. Rodriguez moved through the battlefield like he was playing a game only he could see, treating cover mechanics and weapon switching with the casual mastery of someone who had spent thousands of hours speed-running virtual worlds. Did he just? One of the alien observers started. Use the quantum recoil from a missed shot to boost himself over that barrier. Yes, Chen confirmed. He figured out you could redirect the energy feedback loop about 10 minutes after we got here. Called it a wave dash. The other competitors were rapidly learning that thousands of years of formal weapons training were no match for a species that had turned combat into entertainment. Rodriguez wasn't just winning. He was putting on a show, complete with unnecessarily flashy moves that somehow turned out to be devastatingly effective. Captain, Vexterra said slowly, their scales shifting to a color Chen had never seen before. What would happen if we gave your species access to our full weapons database? Honestly, within a week, someone would figure out how to play music through the quantum harmonics. Within a month, we'd have competitive leagues. Within a year, she gestured to the arena, where Rodriguez had just discovered that you could use the quantum lance's emergency shutdown sequence as an improvised flashbang. Well, you're seeing the prototype. The tournament continued, but it had become less of a competition and more of an impromptu masterclass in human adaptability. Other competitors started copying Rodriguez's techniques, leading to a cascade of innovations that had the weapons developers in the audience frantically taking notes. "We've been going about this all wrong," a Nixilian weapons master declared, watching Rodriguez demonstrate how to chain quantum fields into what he called a combo multiplier. "We designed our weapons to be precise instruments of war. Your species turned them into instruments, period. That's humanity for you," Chen replied. "Give us any tool, and we'll either turn it into a game or figure out how to play music with it. Usually both." The tournament ended with Rodriguez setting the score so high that several alien mathematicians got into an argument about whether their number system could accurately represent it. As the lieutenant walked off the arena floor, casually twirling the quantum lance one last time, Chen could see the future of interstellar military cooperation being rewritten in real time. "Captain Chen," Vexterra said, their scales now cycling through colors faster than the translator could process, "we would like to propose a new joint training initiative. Our technology, combined with your species' unique approach to mastery. You want us to help turn your combat training programs into games," Chen translated. "We prefer the term Advanced Neural Engagement Protocols. But, yes, though I must ask, will all of your weapons officers approach our technology like Lieutenant Rodriguez?" Chen thought about the gaming competitions she'd seen on the Odyssey, where off-duty crew members turned everything from maintenance routines to waste disposal into increasingly complex challenges. "Supreme Commander, I hate to break this to you, but Rodriguez is actually one of our more serious officers. Wait until you meet our engineers. They've been talking about something called speedrunning your FTL drive calibration sequence." The look of horror that crossed Vexterra's features was almost worth the mountain of diplomatic paperwork this tournament would generate. Almost. As they left the arena, Chen could hear Rodriguez already planning the next innovation. "Okay, but hear me out. What if we added achievements? Like quantum quintuple kill or 0.0 death run?" The future of interstellar warfare was about to get a lot more entertaining. Crisis Point. The holographic tactical display aboard the UES Odyssey painted a grim picture. Dozens of unknown vessels, their hulls absorbing light in ways that made sensor operators queasy, had appeared at the edge of Arxian space. First contact had consisted of 3 words: submit or perish. "Well," Captain Chen said, studying the display, "they certainly know how to make an entrance." Very classic boss battle energy. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now officially designated as Weapons Integration Specialist, after the tournament that had rewritten several laws of neural physics, nodded in agreement. "Definitely final level vibes. Check out those ship designs. Very endgame content." The Arxian military liaison, Commander Kittel, stared at them both with all 4 eyes. "Your species' ability to treat existential threats as entertainment continues to disturb me." "Pattern recognition," Chen explained, zooming in on one of the enemy vessels. "Every game has taught us that when the mysterious dark ships show up, it's time for the final challenge. Speaking of which, Rodriguez, what do we know about their weapons?" "That's the interesting part, Captain." Rodriguez pulled up his analysis, fingers dancing across the quantum interface he'd modified with what he called a better control scheme. "They're using some kind of void-based technology, absolute cutting-edge stuff. The kind of weapons that usually don't unlock until New Game Plus." "Incomprehensible terms, please," Catal requested, scales flickering with irritation. "Right, sorry. Their weapons seem to create localized pockets of nothing. Not just vacuum, actual null space. They're not destroying targets so much as editing them out of reality. It's like they found the development console and started using delete commands. The tactical display updated as more sensor data came in. The enemy fleet, which had taken to calling themselves the Voidborn in their propaganda broadcasts, had already disabled 3 Arxian defense stations. The concerning part wasn't their success. It was how they'd achieved it. "Look at this footage," Chen said, playing back a recording of one attack. "They're not just powerful, they're efficient. Every shot is perfectly placed. No wasted energy, no missed targets. It's almost like they're running an MBOT," Rodriguez finished. "Too perfect. No organic gunner is that consistent." Kittle's scales shifted to a worried purple. "Are you suggesting their weapons are automated?" "Better," Chen said, a familiar glint in her eye. "They're running on algorithms. And what's the one thing humanity has spent the last century doing besides turning everything into a game? Finding ways to break game algorithms," Rodriguez answered, already pulling up his modified weapon controls. "Captain, remember that bug I found in the quantum lance targeting system? The one that let me cancel the safety protocols by frame-perfect switching. The one that caused 3 quantum physics professors to retire early." "Yes." "Well, I've been thinking, if their weapons use similar baseline principles for targeting." Rodriguez's fingers flew across his console, making adjustments that made Kettle's scales turn several previously undocumented colors of distress. The next Voidborn attack came exactly as predicted. Their void weapons reached out with perfect precision, ready to erase another defense station from existence. Instead, they found Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez, his modified quantum lance interfacing with the Odyssey's main weapons in ways that definitely violated several laws of physics. The void beam connected and reflected back on itself. "Ha!" Rodriguez shouted as the enemy ship's entire weapons array deleted itself from reality. "Get parried. That's what you get for running predictable patterns." The bridge erupted in chaos as sensor operators tried to understand what they'd just seen. Tull's scales had gone completely white, a color Chen had never seen on an Arxian before. "How? What did you do?" "Simple," Rodriguez said, already targeting the next enemy ship. "Their targeting algorithms are perfect, right? Too perfect. No randomness, no human error. Once you know the pattern, you can exploit it. Just like speedrunning any other game with bad eye." Chen watched as her weapons officer systematically dismantled the supposedly invincible Voidborn fleet using techniques he'd learned from breaking video games. Each perfectly predicted shot was turned back on itself, each flawless strategy countered by human unpredictability. "Kittle," she said quietly, watching Rodriguez work, "your people have spent generations perfecting the science of warfare. But sometimes the best way to beat a perfect system is to introduce a little chaos. By treating weapons that can delete matter from existence, like a game." "Exactly. The Voidborn built their weapons to be perfect. Humanity." She gestured to Rodriguez, who was now humming the boss battle theme from some ancient game as he worked. "We built our games to break perfect systems." The tide had turned. Across the battlefield, other human ships were adopting Rodriguez's techniques, turning the Voidborn's perfect precision against them. Their unbeatable algorithms meant nothing against opponents who'd spent their lives finding exploits in gaming systems. "Captain," Kittle said, their scales settling into a new color, one that Chen would later learn represented profound paradigm shifts, "I believe we owe your species an apology. When we first met, we thought you were primitive for treating combat like entertainment. And now I understand. You weren't playing with our weapons during the tournament. You were practicing." Rodriguez's voice cut through their conversation. "Hey, Captain, I think I just found a way to quick swap between void reflections for a damage multiplier. Want to see something cool?" Chen smiled. "Show them why we call it a boss fight, Lieutenant." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across known space, not just for its tactical significance, but as the moment when the galaxy learned that humanity's greatest military advantage wasn't our technology or our numbers. It was our high score. Integration. The Arxian War Academy had changed significantly in the 3 months since the Voidborn encounter. Where once there had been austere halls filled with silent warriors practicing precision drills, now there was chaos. Beautiful, productive chaos. Captain Chen stood beside Supreme Commander Vextara, watching a training session that would have been unthinkable a year ago. A mixed group of human and Arxian cadets were running what Rodriguez had dubbed raid scenarios in a massively upgraded combat integration pod. "Watch this part," Chen said, pointing to a young Arxian whose scales were flickering with excitement. An expression that would have been considered highly unprofessional before human influence. The cadet had just discovered they could use their natural chromatic abilities to confuse enemy targeting systems while performing what Rodriguez called a frame-perfect dodge. "Remarkable," Vextara observed. "Before your species arrived, it took decades to master our advanced weapon systems. Now our cadets are discovering new techniques daily. Though I'm still not certain about some of these terms they use." As if on cue, shouts erupted from the training floor. "Yo, corrects. That Void Lance cancel was totally OP. Thanks. I've been grinding that technique all week. Did you see the DPS numbers?" Vextara's scales shifted to a confused yellow. "I understood perhaps 3 of those words." Chen laughed. "They're speaking gamer, humanity's most successful cultural export. Your younger warriors picked it up faster than the translation algorithms could handle." The integration of human gaming culture with Arxian military technology had produced results that defied conventional analysis. Traditional combat doctrines were being rewritten as young warriors from both species collaborated to find new ways to exploit the game mechanics of advanced weapon systems. "Your Lieutenant Rodriguez's training program has been unconventional," Vextara admitted, watching as another group of cadets competed to set a new speedrun record for the assault course. "You mean the achievement system, the leaderboards, the optional hard mode scenarios? All of it." When he first proposed turning our sacred combat trials into what he called a really expensive gaming setup, there was significant resistance from the traditional military establishment. And now, Vextara gestured to where a senior Arxian weapons master was earnestly discussing combo systems with a human instructor. "Now we have 1,000-cycle veterans asking about something called New Game Plus." The real breakthrough had come when Rodriguez introduced the concept of modding to the Arxian technical division. The idea that warriors could be encouraged to modify and improve their weapons, to find new ways to push the technology beyond its intended limits, had initially horrified the traditionally minded weapons developers. Then the results started coming in. "Supreme Commander." A young Arxian technician rushed up, their scales bright with excitement. "You need to see this. We've been working on combining human animation canceling techniques with our quantum field manipulation." The demonstration that followed violated at least 3 laws of physics that Chen was aware of. The Arxian cadet moved through space like they were taking shortcuts through reality itself, their weapons flowing through impossible configurations that somehow worked. "Pretty sick skill chain," Rodriguez commented, appearing beside Chen with his usual casual timing. "We're calling it the quantum combo system. Turns out Arxian chromatic shifting can create some really interesting frame data when you combine it with void technology." "Lieutenant," Vextara said, their scales showing the now familiar pattern of resigned amusement, "what exactly have you done to our military?" "Optimized it," Rodriguez replied cheerfully. "You guys had all the right pieces. Amazing tech, precise training, perfect execution. You just needed someone to come along and treat it like an amazing game waiting to be broken." Chen watched as another group of cadets celebrated beating their previous best time on the infiltration course. The mix of human and Arxian cheers was punctuated by terms that would have been meaningless a year ago. "Perfect run. World record. Let's go." The most fascinating aspect, Vextara observed, is how this approach has improved actual combat effectiveness. The Voidborn attack proved that treating advanced warfare like a game doesn't make it less serious. It makes us more adaptable. That's because games taught us something crucial, Chen explained. In a game, failure isn't final. It's a chance to learn, to try new strategies, to push boundaries. When you remove the fear of failure from training, you get warriors who innovate, Vex Terra finished, who see patterns not as rules to follow, but as systems to master, and perhaps transcend. The training session concluded with what Rodriguez had dubbed a boss rush, a gauntlet of increasingly difficult combat scenarios that the cadets tackled with coordinated chaos that somehow worked perfectly. Humans and Arxians moved in sync, combining precision with creativity in ways that made traditional combat doctrine obsolete. Captain, Vex Terra said as they watched the final scores being posted to enthusiastic cheers, "I believe we owe your species a debt we hadn't fully understood until now. You haven't just taught us new ways to fight. You've taught us new ways to learn." "All we did was show you how to play," Chen replied, but she was interrupted by a priority alert flashing across their neural interfaces. The message was brief but clear. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Voidborn fleet, larger than the first, better armed, apparently adapted to their previous tactics. Rodriguez read the alert and grinned. "Awesome. Looks like they're ready for New Game Plus." Chen looked at the newly graduated cadets, at the impossible techniques they'd mastered, at the way they'd learned to combine human creativity with Arxian precision. "Well then," she said, "let's show them our speed-run strats." The final battle was approaching. And this time, they had a whole new meta to work with. The final boss. The combined human Arxian fleet hung in formation at the edge of the Centauri sector, waiting. The massive Voidborn armada approaching their position was exactly what Rodriguez had predicted. They're definitely running the upgraded version, with all the DLC installed. Captain Chen stood on the Odyssey's bridge, now transformed by the integration of human gaming interfaces with Arxian quantum technology. The traditional command chair had been replaced by what Rodriguez called a proper gaming setup, complete with haptic feedback and customizable control schemes. "All ships reporting ready, Captain," Commander Catal announced, their scales showing the steady blue of focused calm, with just a hint of the excited purple that had become common among Arxians who'd embraced human combat philosophy. "Though I must ask, why are we broadcasting that audio signal across all frequencies?" "Boss music," Rodriguez explained from his weapons station, which now looked more like a professional esports setup than traditional military hardware. "Can't have a final battle without the right soundtrack." The Voidborn fleet emerged from void space exactly as their intelligence had predicted. But this time, they were ready. 3 months of intensive training, of combining human gaming instincts with Arxian precision, had prepared them for this moment. "Remember," Chen broadcast to the fleet, "they've adapted to our previous tactics. They're running new algorithms, better void weapons, but that just means they're telegraphing their attack patterns." A young Arxian commander finished enthusiastically. "Just like you taught us. Every upgrade creates new exploits." The Voidborn struck first, their void beams reaching out to erase matter from existence. But this time, instead of finding easy targets, they encountered what Rodriguez had dubbed the ultimate raid strategy. Human ships moved with controlled chaos, their maneuvers following patterns that looked random but were actually carefully choreographed skill rotations. Arxian vessels shifted colors in precise sequences, creating void field disruptions that the humans had likened to stunning the boss. Phase 1 clear. Rodriguez called out as the initial Voidborn attack faltered. Time for the DPS check. The combined fleet moved as one, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible before the integration of their cultures. Humans provided the unpredictable creativity, while Arxians supplied the technical precision needed to make it work. "They're adapting," Catal warned as the Voidborn ships began shifting formation. "New attack patterns detected." "Good," Chen replied, fingers dancing across her quantum-enhanced controls. That means we get to show them our new combo system. What followed would be studied in military academies and gaming tournaments for generations to come. The human concept of frame-perfect timing, merged with Arxian quantum manipulation, created opportunities that defied conventional physics. Ships moved through space like speedrunners exploiting glitches, while weapons fired in sequences that treated void technology like combo chains in a fighting game. Main boss at 50% HP. Someone called out, the mixture of military jargon and gaming terms now natural to both species. Watch out for the phase transition. The Voidborn flagship, a massive construct of darkness and impossible geometries, began what they expected would be its ultimate attack. Space itself began to warp as void energy gathered in patterns that threatened to delete entire sectors of reality. "Oh nice," Rodriguez commented, surprisingly calm. They added a new mechanic for the final phase. "Hey Captain, remember that bug we found in the training sim? The one that let you redirect void energy by quick switching between quantum states?" Chen grinned. "The one that made the physics professors cry. How could I forget?" "Well, I've been theory crafting with the Arxian tech team. If we combine that with their chromatic shifting technology..." Understanding dawned across the bridge as Rodriguez laid out his plan. It was exactly the kind of impossible, ridiculous strategy that would never have occurred to either species alone. It required human creativity to imagine and Arxian precision to execute. It's going to exploit the game engine so hard the universe might need a patch update, Rodriguez concluded. But it should work. Chen looked at Catal, who was already shifting colors in preparation. "Your thoughts, Commander?" "In the old doctrine, we would call this plan insanity," Catal replied, their scales showing a new color pattern that had emerged among Arxians, one that meant embracing human chaos. "But as your people say, it's so crazy, it just might work." The next few minutes were a symphony of coordinated chaos. Human ships moved in patterns based on old video game speed-running techniques, while Arxian vessels pulsed with chromatic signals that turned void energy back on itself. Rodriguez's modified weapons systems, now distributed throughout the fleet, treated the laws of physics less like fundamental rules and more like gameplay mechanics waiting to be broken. The Voidborn never stood a chance. Their perfect algorithms couldn't adapt to strategies that shouldn't have been possible. Their void weapons found their deletion effects reflected, redirected, and in some cases turned into what Rodriguez enthusiastically termed combo multipliers. When the final explosion faded, an explosion that technically existed in 7 different quantum states simultaneously, Chen allowed herself a moment to appreciate the absurdity of it all. They had just won an interstellar war using techniques developed for breaking video games. "Final score?" she asked, maintaining command formality despite her grin. "Off the charts," Rodriguez reported. "Definitely a world record, though we might need to create a new category for this speedrun." Kittel's scales showed a complex pattern of victory and amusement. "Captain, I believe I speak for all Arxians when I say, your species' approach to warfare is completely illogical, entirely unpredictable, and absolutely brilliant." "Thanks," Chen replied. "Though I should warn you, now that we've beaten the main campaign, Rodriguez has been talking about something called achievement hunting." The look of horror that crossed Kittel's features was quickly replaced by excited curiosity. "These achievements, do they come with leaderboards?" As the fleet began its victory formation, a formation that somehow included elements from classic video game victory poses, Chen reflected on how far they'd come. 2 species, separated by centuries of technological development, brought together by humanity's eternal drive to turn everything into a game. "All ships, well played," she broadcast to the fleet. "Now, who's ready for New Game Plus?" The cheer that came back was in 2 languages, but the sentiment was universal. The universe had just learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that treats advanced warfare like a really expensive game. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of space, Rodriguez was already planning how to speedrun the cleanup operation.